Hi, everybody. My name is Samantha Lane, and I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here for SE Shires Company. I'm joined by my friend and my colleague, Alexis Smith. She's our product specialist at SE Shires. And this is a socially, physically distanced Shires equipment Q&A with the two of us to kind of chat about some of your questions, some of the most frequently asked questions that we get. If you ever write to us, like on our website or send us an email at info@shires, typically it's Alexis who's actually chatting with you. So now you can finally put a face to a name and a voice to all of that too. But we thought this would be a really fun opportunity to get a little bit geeky, talk a little bit about equipment. We've tried to keep some of the ShiresTV stuff more about the artists and the topics that we're covering. This one's just a straight up geek fest. We're going to do another really fun one too. It's in the works right now, that will feature a shop tour and also a roundtable discussion with myself, my colleague James Monahan, who's the general manager, and some of our team leaders in the different departments. That will be pretty awesome, actually, because we'll be able to show you some of the different features and things that we do to instruments, and also pick the brain of some of our craftsmen and craftswomen. Tonight is more about those geeky questions that you have. Why does a soldered bell play differently than a non-soldered bell? How does annealing affect the sound? Wide versus narrow slide? Trumpet bell tapers, what's going on there? Euphonium, like the whole 9 yards. So we'll do our best to answer your questions and keep it as fun as possible. But I am thrilled to introduce my colleague Alexis Smith. She joined us relatively recently at Shires, but it feels like she's been part of the team and the family for a really long time. She's played Shires for a very long time as well, and I think that's probably a good reason why she already feels like part of the team from the get-go, from the very beginning. And she's a total blast, and I'm thrilled for you guys to get to spend some time with her and meet her. I'm going to turn it over to her so she can give you a little bit more about who she is and how she came to us and what else she does outside of Shires as well. So without further ado, Alexis Smith.
Ta-da. So thank you for that introduction. So let's see, I've been playing trombone since I was 10. I used to play for the donkeys that lived on our property. And my mother was originally like, you should play something more ladylike. So of course I stuck with trombone and I practiced in the barn. And then from there, I went to Interlochen Arts Academy for 3 years, and I studied with Tom Riccobono. And then I moved to New York, kind of the exact opposite from the boonies of
Very much so.
Oh yeah, thank God. And I went to Manhattan School of Music and studied with David Finlayson for 4 years. And then I went to the Juilliard School and I studied with Per Brevig, had studio class with Joe Alessi. And let's see, what else did I do? I feel like it's such a long story.
No, it's great. It's fun stuff.
Going from master's to my doctorate, I started playing with Southwest Florida Symphony, and I won the principal trombone spot about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm at Boston University studying with Toby Off to get my doctorate and working at Shires. So it's been
All at the same time.
yes, yeah.
I know, it's crazy.
But
Preparing recitals, traveling for shows, working with customers. Yeah.
I've gotten really good at time management.
It's important as a musician for sure. I mean, like that's
really
one
is.
thing that, I mean, if you're going to be a professional musician, freelancer, educator, anything really, I mean, that time management thing is crucial.
There are just so many things you have to juggle and make sure that you're on the ball with,
Yeah.
especially with practicing, like making sure that you get your time in every day.
Yeah. So like, for those of you who don't know, Alexis and our colleague James do most of the playtesting at the factory too. So we're going to start talking about some equipment stuff and also start filtering some of these questions. But Alexis, maybe you can like jump in really quick. Just when you play Shires trombones every day, your own, the stuff that's in the factory. When you're playtesting an instrument, what is it that you're looking for?
When I'm playing testing an instrument, first of all, it's really fun. I get to try out all the different horns. I get to try out every horn pretty much. And a lot of what I'm looking for, they're basics, like making sure that, you know, we dot our I's, cross our T's. Like we have, like there isn't any loose solder. We make sure that everything looks beautiful, that there aren't any superficial issues. But then one of the big things too that I look for is to make sure that, say, a Colin Williams model plays like a Colin Williams model, a Ralph Sauer model plays like a Ralph Sauer model. Uh, and just making sure that each horn has that characteristic that you're looking for when you're trying out all of these different components. Um, it's fun, and I'm also looking to see what can the horn do, like how soft can I play, how loud can I play, how does the slide feel. It goes basically down to everything that you're looking for, which is great for me because I get to put every horn through its paces.
Yeah.
And I think the factory knows when I find a horn that I really, really like, because I'll start playing a lot of different things.
Right. And all the guys start singing along in the
And
background.
then they all start singing along
Yeah.
because we have very thin walls. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I do just want to backtrack real quick. Can you just chat really quick before we start getting into questions about what made you start playing Shires in the first place? And
Oh,
then
yeah,
how did you
absolutely.
come to us in terms of joining our team officially here?
Yeah. So I started playing Shires in 2012, and I actually won my Shires at at STS, which is a fantastic festival. I highly recommend it to anyone. And so that's how I got my Shires trombone, and I've loved it ever since. I've tried so many different horns even before my job at Shires, and whenever I come back to my horn, it just feels like home, and I am still in love with it.
Nice.
um, what was the other part of the question?
How,
Sorry.
when, why, where, what, who, when you joined the company?
So I joined the company in January of 20. Wow, I'm so like, I'm looking at my trombone. I'm like, this is a great horn.
Oh, it's a special connection.
Yeah. Um, so I joined the company in January of 2019, and it was actually pretty fortuitous. I met Sam. We met. Uh,
Quintet gig.
yeah, we did a quintet thing together, and we hit it off. We had a great conversation. You drove me
Yeah.
back to the house. But then the job was posted a little while later, and it had so many different things that I was really interested in. I really like working with people. I also obviously love playing trombone. I come from a really strong performance background, but I've also always been interested in what goes into even so much as running a company, like what goes into all of the things that you don't see. So when you see a Shires horn, you're really looking at the tip of the iceberg. You don't see the production, you don't see all the emails that go back and forth trying to figure out what's the best fit. And that's one of the things that really drew me to the Shires job, plus the reputation. Like I've loved my horn for so long. And it just really worked out that I was living in Boston and Shires is located right outside. So I feel very lucky that all of these different factors came together into kind of creating the dream job. So then I approached it kind of like you would with an audition in my preparation, and it paid off.
That's interesting. I didn't really think about it that way. I mean, you were obviously very enthusiastic and very well prepared, and that was really cool. But it is kind of like an audition. You're totally
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
it absolutely is. It's I think going through the audition process teaches you so much that can carry over to other parts of your life, not just music.
Yeah.
It's a really great skill to have.
Yeah. So let's start getting into some questions. I'm going to jump around a little bit, so we might start talking about bells and go to something else and then come back. But the first thing I'm just going to throw at you really quick, Tom Savage just posted this, and I think it's a great question. When you're playtesting, do you have a specific system to test the horn? Arpeggios, certain pitches, scales? What do you do, like, if you had to boil it down into a short?
Yeah, absolutely. I play the same playtest routine on every single trombone. And I think pretty much, like, I think all the guys in the factory could probably sing
We
that
sing along.
exact
Yeah.
playtest. Yeah, routine. So I like to test out all the different parts of the horn. So I'll play something like organ symphony to see how it holds together in the soft register, how it feels going in and out of a valve. I'll play something like till just to see how it feels with the articulation. How does the slide feel? I like when I'm playing testing slide, I like to think of basically just throwing my arm out there and the slide follows. It's not something that I have to think about at all. If I have to think about the slide, then I'll start troubleshooting what could be. I'll play Ravel, I'll play L'Enfant. See how does the horn feel in the higher register? Does it feel easy? Does it feel like singing? Do I feel like I can kind of float a little bit?
Yeah.
I'll also play glisses just to see, is there anything loose? I found with partials with glisses, that's really how you're going to find out if maybe there's something that wasn't screwed down, maybe it's just something that we overlooked. But that's how we're able to make sure that you're not going to have any loose soft blobs. We really do our best to make sure that everything is as consistent as possible in the factory.
Yeah.
From there, I'll play ride usually just to see how does the horn, does it splash? Like what's going on? And then if I really like the horn, I'll start playing Bach, or we'll start playing Lunastics and kind of go from there.
Nice. Awesome.
But those excerpts are really what I play with every single horn. And that goes for cue and custom alike. We do the same playtest routine for both of those horns.
Yeah, we treat them the same way in the shop, through playtesting and finaling and all of that's the same team, of course. Let's get into some other dorky stuff. Eric had written in, and this is one of the most frequently asked questions that we get. What do red bells do in comparison with yellow brass bells? And maybe just to even widen it out a little bit, can you chat a little bit about yellow versus gold versus red?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think of yellow as very efficient. It goes to the back of the hall very easily. It will have generally a brighter sound, but it's also, you're going to have a lot more clarity on the fronts of notes. It's going to be easier to get that shimmering sound you might want. And I think yellow is fantastic for if you have to lead, say, a section, if you're playing in a big band. Yellow is you don't have to work as hard with yellow getting the sound out. With gold, I think of gold as very warm, very round, a little bit wider. It's a little bit better with blending, a little bit more flexible in terms of the colors you can get as kind of a bridge, if that makes sense. And I think the gold, it's not quite as efficient with the articulations, at least for me. And everything that I say is just what I've encountered. Each person is different, and they bring a different sound to the instrument. So what I'm saying in terms of all this equipment is just what I've noticed. And I think that's really important to recognize that everyone is different.
And that's, you say that for like almost every single customer, whenever somebody asks us a question, it's always in our opinion or in general, we have to kind of speak realities. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. Generally, I find gold also has a much rounder, tried to say round and warm, articulation on the front end, especially. With red is actually really interesting to me. Red has this really beautiful color palette. It has a lot of flexibility in being able to change the mood, the color. Again, like when I think of red brass, I think of color. But sometimes with red brass, it's a little bit harder to blend. Sometimes I've noticed it'll light up a little bit more easily. Mm-hmm. But like I think of red brass as a like incredible solo bell, like a very intimate sort of alloy. Generally, I think of bells as the soul of a trombone. There's so many intangible qualities that come from a bell, and I really think bells are so special, and it's so hard sometimes to be objective and be like, this is better, this is worse. It's a lot of the times it's like, this is different than the other bell, but neither one is necessarily better or worse. It's more like, what are you looking for? What are you comfortable with?
There's not a bad ice cream flavor. They're all good. It's just a matter of what you're looking for. We usually talk about food a lot when we're comparing trombones and trumpets. So it's usually a good parallel. So on that same tangent, Skylar was wondering, can you talk about mixed alloys, like if we're doing a yellow stem with a gold flare? Have you had much experience playtesting some of those? We do those a little less frequently. Those are typically like a special order kind of thing. We have a few dealers who like them and we'll stock them as well. But in general, like, have you played much in terms of the dual alloys?
I've played a couple. For me, personally,
Applause.
personally, you know, they're not for me. I think because the bell that I've grown up playing is a yellow bell through and through. Um, when I play mixed alloy bells, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of one thing and a little bit of another thing. And maybe it's that I am not flexible in changing, but it's hard for me to wrap my brain around it. If I have a gold to yellow bell, I might get what, yeah, it goes gold, yellow, you usually do more copper up top, I believe, for the stem.
Yeah.
Um, I'll get the feeling of gold. It'll be nice and round, but then I'll get the sound of yellow. And for me, that's just, it's a little hard for me to wrap my brain about it. That being said, I do know some people who are very happy with their dual alloy bells.
Yeah.
With something like a dual alloy bell, I would always recommend trying it before committing to it. Same with like a cut bell.
Yeah, and with the cut bell thing, and maybe we should just jump into that really quickly because it's one of the most common questions that we get. With cut bells, I don't know about you, but usually what I recommend to people is, yeah, if you have the opportunity to try something, whether it's at a dealer or at a show or in our showroom or something, a buddy's, something like that, then try it if you can. If you have a bell that you absolutely love and it is the holy grail and you found it and that's it, I don't recommend cutting it. Don't touch it. Tell us what it is that you're playing. And if you play the most incredible 7YLW and you've had it forever, like let us know and we'll suggest let's do a 7YLW, but we're gonna modify it a little bit because if we add the collar, it's gonna be a little bit heavier. So let's call it a 7YXLW or something, a little bit heavier. So can you chat a little bit about how detachable flare bells play differently than standard bells, even like the same model back to back?
So what I've noticed, both playing and on the other side of the bell, the collar really focuses sound. It's going to generally be a much more dense sound, more focused. It's going to kind of travel more to the back, which some people are really looking for. But the other thing is you lose a lot of the flexibility of color, I found. You're adding weight. So I would never cut a bell that's not meant to be cut, similar to what Sam said. But the biggest thing I've noticed with detachable flares, it really will focus your articulation, but you'll lose a little bit of color.
Yeah, and like we were saying, like adding that color does add a little bit of weight because it's not just the color, but it's also like soldering it onto the bell. So if you play on a B2 7YM bass trombone bell, and that's a medium weight bell, we might say, let's do it as a B2 7YLW lightweight bell, because by the time you add the collar, it's not quite up to that medium weight, but it'll focus it and still give you a little bit of ring. So we usually recommend going like a shade lighter on the weight scale. But again, like if you have a bell that you freaking love, if you can't afford to get a backup bell, like that's usually a good way to go. And we offer like a little package discount thing where you can order a detachable flare bell and the case together, and it's like pretty big savings on the case. So if you can swing it, at least I always suggest doing that.
Yeah, and we know some people who play let's say a one-piece bell or a non-cut bell, let's say.
Right.
And then as they travel, they'll have their cut bell. Like we have the travel model from Blair that has the cut bell. And I know of a lot of people who are really happy doing that stuff, especially when they're traveling, they're on tour. And it's just easier. It is,
yeah.
Logistics. I am in love with the cut bell cases.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot easier for us when we're like traveling through airports with trombones too.
Yeah, I think I say it's a bass guitar.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's
to see what people do.
Instead of saying bassoon, but yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So we forgot about an alloy in terms of bells, and it's something new that we just started doing again: sterling silver.
Yeah.
So we don't do too much sterling silver because it's a little bit more like special order. It's expensive. It's a more expensive material. But we have done some really smoking bells in sterling silver. Have you gotten to play test much of those?
I have.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing for me is it feels almost like a detachable flare bell, but to the extreme. Like it's going to
Okay.
be very dense, very focused. The sound is going to hit the back of the hall. Like there is no doubt in my mind that that sound is going to project forward. But that being said, it projects forward and not necessarily across.
Okay.
You kind of lose out on that sparkling sound. It's a very dense, kind of dark sound from
Yeah.
what I've noticed. And it's forward. It is absolutely as forward as you could be.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And our colleague James Monahan plays on a sterling bell for some of his like Latin stuff
Yeah,
and loves it because like he projects it. It's like a really nice dense fat sound.
got a punch to it.
It does, and it's really really fun. We've done some sterling trumpet bells too, and those are killer. We had a sterling piccolo trumpet that went to Milano Music for a customer, and our trumpet players in the shop were like crying the day that it left. It was like their favorite piccolo trumpet.
I think
Um,
my office and I walked out and I was like, what's happening? I
I know,
like
yeah,
I don't know what's
here,
happening, but I like it.
here it is. So in terms of bells, for let's keep on trombones, and then we'll get to a couple of trumpet questions that we had. Um, let's just chat really quick about soldered versus unsoldered,
Yeah.
and one piece versus two piece.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
know, big topics, but
Fun. So I guess we'll talk about soldered versus unsoldered first.
yeah.
When we're saying soldered versus unsoldered, we're talking about the bead wire that goes kind of at the lip of the trombone bell. And what I've noticed with soldered bells is that it's going to have a little bit more clarity of articulation. It's going to be a little bit more crisp. It's going to be easier also. I've noticed it to be easier on my face when I want to get really short staccato, like Stravinsky staccato, or even just make sure that, at least for me, I know that that articulation is going to be there.
Mhm.
With unsoldered bead wire bells, you have this nice warmth to it. It's a little bit rounder. It's a little bit, I think, more malleable, if that makes sense. The sound, I think of it as like this, it has this tendency more to be like a round, nectar, lush um, articulation. That's the biggest thing for me when it comes to soldered versus unsoldered is the articulation.
And also, like in terms of like listening to you play or hearing some of our other like artists or people in the shop playing, the the shape and the space of the sound when I'm sitting and like listening to somebody playing unsoldered, I get a lot more radial sound like all around you. It's a little bit more enveloping. It's great for blending and orchestral playing in that sense. A soldered bead is definitely a little bit more clear cut projecting kind of vibe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And
And
then as a player, also,
yeah,
uh, it feels a little bit different, and it's worth experimenting with. It's fun to experiment. Um,
you can balance, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, but you can balance different attributes because if you really want that like nice blended section quality, and both like the Alessi model and the Colin Williams model have unsoldered bead bells, but they're still incredibly articulate. Oh my goodness, tonight, incredibly articulate, and a lot of that has to do with the rest of the pairing of the model. So when we're talking about Shires trombone specifically because they're modular, it's a recipe. We're putting everything together to get the best balance. And you make certain changes and other stuff changes. And it's always just kind of shuffling things around a little bit. But we always do our best to get to that ideal trombone sound.
yeah, I always think of it as a sound Sudoku, whereas everything is sort of contingent on something else.
Right.
And eventually you find that perfect combination and everything sort of locks into place. But it is about experimenting and it's about finding that right balance for people. So you might like, you might want unsoldered. And if that's the case, then we can find something that's going to focus a little bit more for you. Or you might want, you know, we can make it work. It's fun.
Right.
It's really fun. I like thinking of it as a puzzle or Legos, we've said before.
Right. Yeah. We like Legos. I have
Yeah.
many fun memories of playing with Legos. Um, so MJ had an interesting question. If you cut an unsoldered bell, like detachable flare, if you cut it, would it sound more like a soldered bell once you cut it because you're adding the collar?
What?
Yeah, it's I read it a couple times, but it's interesting. So if you were to cut like a Colin Williams bell, and it was a
Yeah.
gospel flare Colin Williams bell, because you cut it and you add the collar and it adds a little bit of weight and that compactness, does that make it sound more like a soldered bell?
I think you could, I would say a little bit more.
Yeah, there's a
Because
little bit more of that
you're adding more weight to a
density.
part of the horn that really affects the resonance.
Yeah,
You're going to get it to focus in a little bit more.
yeah. It's an interesting question. I like read it a couple times.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, so let's see. So let's chat. Oh, one piece versus two piece bells before I
Oh,
move on. Sorry, this is like a lightning round. This is crazy.
no, this is fun. It's my brain is doing
I
things.
know.
So we have three different types of bells for trombone. We have one-piece bells, we have two-piece bells, and then we have modified two-piece bells. For the one-piece bells, they are very flexible, I've found. You can kind of play a lot with the sound, with the articulations. The biggest thing to me with playing a one-piece bell is that it's very open and it's very flexible. Just a quick note, if you ever think about cutting a one-piece bell,
Don't.
I will hunt you down. Don't do that. Like, please don't.
I
You,
know. It's
you're
so.
completely invalidating the point of having a one-piece bell. Um, but
But we
so
can achieve if you like certain attributes of your one piece bell. We can achieve that in other
yeah,
ways. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. We can definitely work with you to find something that's perfect.
Right. Right.
Not cut a one-piece bell. For a two-piece bell, for the traditional two-piece bell, basically it's when you have the bell stem, the bell flare, there's a little overlap with the brazing. But even that, it's a little bit extra weight. So you're creating a little bit more stability actually. And traditional two-piece bells slot really nicely. There's a lot of support to the bell.
Mhm.
On the slightly negative end, you lose some of the flexibility that you have with a one-piece bell. So we created a modified two-piece bell, which I love. I love. That's like our 7 series. Like a 7YLW is very popular. And you're getting the best attributes of both. You're getting a little bit more flexibility than you would with a traditional two-piece bell, but you're also getting a lot of stability that you might not have with a one-piece bell. I personally play a modified two-piece and I really, really love it.
Right. And it's really interesting too because like we obviously have a lot of different models and I might just touch on that in just a second, but like that 7YLW, we call it our Goldilocks bell just because it's very popular. So many people play it. It fits the bill for so many people. That's a modified two piece. Joe Alessi's bell, modified two piece, but unsoldered. Colin Williams bell, traditional two piece, which is interesting. It's a little bit different. And then like the vintage New York, that's a traditional one piece bell. So there's great examples of every single type. It really depends what you're looking for. I'm going to just add a quick thing. Shires nomenclature can be confusing. And we know that and we apologize and we're sorry, but it's evolved over 25 years. And so when we first started making trombones and it was in a basement and it was, just a few happening in a year, it was easy to keep track of. As we added more and more things, we have to keep adding nomenclature. So if you're looking at a bell, it has a ton of letters and it's always on the back of the bell. Um, it's going to have a whole bunch of stuff. T2, 5YM, T8, A5, DF, like all this stuff, and you don't know what it means. Just drop us an email, send us a quick note, info@shires.com if you have questions about it. We do have a couple resources on our website that talks about the differences and what a 5 bell is or what a 7 bell is, all that kind of stuff. But if you have questions, just email us. That's what we're here for. It's kind of fun to decode your bell. Yeah, it's like she said,
But we really don't see that often. And so that's even fun to just be like, ooh, what is this?
right. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I want to just get to a couple of trumpet questions really quick since we're talking about like bells and all that kind of stuff. First of all, Paul wants to know, are trumpet players or trombone players more picky when selecting instruments?
Oh boy.
I know, it's so tough.
Well,
I
you
almost
know,
want to say it's euphonium players, but
oof. Um, well, it's interesting because I feel like when you're really looking for the horn that's going to take you potentially for the rest of your life, people get picky, and they should get picky,
Yeah,
because
for
well,
sure.
it's really fun. You get to play with lead pipes, you get to play with, I mean, for trumpet players, different valve stems, different valve caps, all of this stuff, and it all makes a
Right.
difference. Um, and it's really exciting because we can say generally this, generally that, but when you actually start playing, um, sometimes it's a revelation to everyone in the room. Like, I didn't expect that to happen.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So trumpet players versus trombone players, I'd say we all can be picky.
It's interesting because I'm a trumpet player, Alexis is a trombone player, and I feel like in a way it's easier for trumpet players because our instruments are soldered together. What you see is what you get. Like you could pick all the individual lead pipe, tuning set, all that kind of stuff, and have a trumpet built by us, and that's all great. But still, it's a trumpet in your hand. When we're working with trombone players, you're changing all these components. I will say that I actually prefer doing trombone appointments to trumpet appointments because I love, it's almost like if you remember those adventure books when you were a kid, and if you go down path A, you can choose this, and if you choose this, you go here. It's kind of like that. And to me, it's really exciting and really interesting, like Alexis talking about, to see the revelation of where you end up, what equipment ends up working for you. With trumpet, it's a little bit more straightforward. We're talking to you about how does that feel? What does the resistance feel like? This is what it sounds like. With trombone, it's just a little bit more nitpicky. So
Yeah, a lot of tinkering.
a lot of tinkering. Um, Trumpet bells, really quick. I'm just going to add a couple things because we had a couple people write in about this. Trumpet bell nomenclature has kind of grown just like the trombones, to be honest. Our B flat bells start with letters. Our C trumpets start with numbers, as do our E flat and our piccolo. So there's a few different things going on. For B flats, we have our model, our A, our B, our C, and our D taper, which isn't quite as common anymore. So the A is one of our most popular tapers. It's the most compact, a lot of color and brilliance and projection and clarity to it. It's like on our Model A, our Model AZ, AHW, all of that. The B is a little bit broader. That can sometimes be used a little bit more for more varied styles of playing. I'd say like the A typically is like a great idiomatic classical horn, wind ensemble, quintet, orchestral, chamber, all that kind of stuff. The B is really great if you have a varied palette of work that you're doing. So if you're like in a military band or something like that, and you have to play pops and quintet and wind ensemble and stuff like that, you have a little bit more color at your disposal. The C tapers, that's our broadest taper, and I kind of refer to that as the chameleon taper because you can totally go smoky and velvety, and it's like rich and sultry and beautiful, or you put your pedal to the metal and it lights up even more so than like the A and the B. So like that would be our CVP or our CVLA, those new like commercial ones that are really freaking fantastic to play. And also the dock model is also a C. For the C trumpets, the 4 and the 5, again, we're talking about like the different rates of taper in the bell. We make one taper for the E flat, and the piccolo is just an amazing pick, and the cornet is actually based on our Model A taper for the bell there. So we carry over a lot of things from trumpet or from trombone to trumpet, and also truthfully to euphonium too when we're developing some of this euphonium stuff. Um, it's really interesting because we've had people who kind of double on both trumpet and trombone, and they're primarily a trombone player and they pick up trumpet occasionally, maybe to teach or something, and they say, holy crap, it feels like a Shires. Because it's like, it's a similar quality. There's still like a lot of clarity to the sound. There's still a lot of like resonance and ring and ease of playing, just like on their trombone, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think you want to hear Alexis play trumpet or me play trombone. So
I once played trumpet to get Stella, the factory cat.
go away. That's a good point. Um, let me see. So let's get back to a couple questions. We didn't really talk about bell weights yet. And this, what we say for trombone pretty much also applies to trumpet. So do you want to talk a little bit about like characteristics between light, medium, standard, heavy, and explain.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that the lighter you go, the faster the horn will light up, if that makes sense. Like I think lightweight, light up, like it's going to be super, super responsive.
Mhm.
The lighter you go, it's going to be very efficient. And as you get heavier, the sound, it's going to be, I don't want to say denser, maybe a little darker, frankly. I think of them as less flexible, which can be great. If, say, you have one job that you have to do, sometimes those heavier bells are great, but also it's going to create a lot more stability having a heavier bell. You don't have to worry about it getting splashy or necessarily too bright, or even just being too strident. The heavier bell will really, really help kind of
Mhm.
tame that sound. So if you're used to putting out a ton of air, a ton of sound through the horn, and it'll start breaking up, then maybe a heavier bell is a great option for you.
Yeah.
And we have 4 variations in the weights of bells. So we can slowly dial it back and find what's best for you. I play on a lightweight bell, and the reason I do that is just because I want something that's going to hit the back of the hall. And at least for me, I wanted something that would help me play higher more easily.
Nerd.
I know. Um, but yeah, for me, what I've noticed is that a lighter bell is going to be a little bit more efficient. It's going to be faster to respond, but when you're going towards a heavier bell, you're going to have a lot more stability and more core to the sound.
And from our perspective, and I think you'd probably agree with me, you definitely see shifts in what is popular over periods of time and what people are trending towards. In the last 5 years or so, I've been with Shires for about 8 years now, but like in the last like 5, 6 years, we're definitely seeing it come to a little bit on the lighter side. More people are going to lighter weight bells or maybe medium weight. We're getting less requests for standard weight
Yeah.
or heavyweight for sure. And that's on both tenor, bass, small bore, trumpet, all of that too. So it's kind of interesting. Like it's a sound conceptual kind of thing, also a playability thing. There was definitely a time when big equipment was it. Like that's what people wanted, the biggest, beefiest, darkest, whatever sound. And I think it's the trend is a little bit more shimmer, resonance, projection, clarity.
Yeah, definitely something that's just more efficient. It's a little
Yeah.
easier. It's already stressful enough to play an instrument. Why make it harder?
Yeah. So speaking of efficiency and all that kind of stuff, let's chat about valves. This is an interesting thing because we have a lot of valves.
We have a lot of valves.
If y'all haven't noticed, we have a lot of valves. We do that because there are so many different players and so many different physical attributes, and again, like sound concept kind of things. The throw varies greatly. It's just personal preference. I will say that all of our models, except for like maybe the artist models, but you can choose which valve you want to put on a Shires trombone because everything is modular. You can order that amazing Chicago model with a twin valve, or you can order the Shires custom with a dual bore. Like you get to choose which valve you prefer. But Alexis, can you give a short explanation of each of the valves, what they feel like to you, and what most people respond with?
Yeah. So I think of valves as kind of a spectrum. And on one hand, you have the dual bore valve, and on the other hand, you have the axial flow valve. Um, the axial, which is one of our most popular valves, it's very broad. It has a long throw, but you also get a lot of warmth, a lot of resonance. In the lower ends of your range, you're going to get like this really nice, beefy sound. On the other hand, sometimes the articulations are a little bit more difficult. It'll take a little bit more air. You do have that longer throw. Um, and then, as I said before, you have the dual bore on the other end, which is our shortest throw. And I feel like it's also uh, it's the most efficient valve in
Mhm.
terms of what you're using for your air, and it's going to have the fastest response. It'll sometimes feel like a pop because it's just that zippy in terms of going from open valve to closed valve.
Sure.
Um, On the other hand, you don't get the sound color of an axial. So you're getting something that might be a little bit more, it might be a little bit brighter. It might be a little bit more, I don't want to say compressed. Um,
Yeah, compacty. Yeah.
yeah, compact. I think that's the right word. And then in that whole spectrum, we have a bunch of other different valves. And I think the important thing to recognize with valves, like I play an axial, but I totally understand why someone wouldn't want to play an axial and would rather play like a rotor or the dual bore. Valves are, I think of them a lot of just playability. Like I like the cushion of the axial when I go in and out of the valve, but some people don't like that, and that's totally okay. That's why we
Right.
have valves. Then on the other hand, you have, I mean, coming from the dual bore, you have the rotor, which is, it has a little bit more suppleness. We also now have the Alessi rotor.
Yep.
They are both very efficient. They have a very traditional feel to them when you're playing a rotor. But the cool thing about the Alessi rotor is that you have that bronze valve cap, and you have a little bit less bracing and a slightly different wrap. So what I've noticed is it feels like the horn is a little bit more open than a traditional rotor. It has a little bit more flexibility, and
Yep.
the color has a little, it's more interesting because you have that bronze valve cap, which feels like it shouldn't do a lot, but it really does. You get a
It
lot
does.
color palette because of that bronze valve cap. So with our range, I would say dual bore, rotor, Alessi rotor, and then we go to twin valve true bore. They're both very different to me.
Yeah.
Um, but with the true bore, you have a very open throw. It has kind of like that drawbridge mechanism. It feels, it feels very open. Like it's hard to tell when you're going in and out of the valve. And a lot of people like that open feeling, but it still has a little bit of stability, similar to say a rotor or a dual bore. But the sound is more similar, I think, to an axial. The feel's a little bit more similar
Sound.
to an axial.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're definitely going to be using a little bit more air. Um, but if you're looking for something that you love the sound of the axial, you like the open feeling of the axial, but maybe the axial just like it's a little too inefficient, the true bore is a fantastic valve.
Mhm.
We also have the twin valve, which oh, I'm obsessed with.
I know, and it's like a, of course, it's like exciting and new and all that kind of stuff, but we love it at the shop. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, originally I thought it was gimmicky, and then I tried it, and I was just like, this is fantastic. What I've noticed is that when I play with the valve activated, it actually feels so much easier than playing open horn. Like I know we're always told to play open horn, but when I play the twin valve, I like the sound better, and it's just immediately responsive.
Right.
It's, I think I just start giggling every time I play. It's just stupidly
It
fun.
does, it does sound great. And like even in the R&D, as we were like going out and having people try it, like I remember being, I think it was at STS, and I brought like one of the sneak peek prototypes, and hearing like Nate Zagong just go to town on it was ridiculous. It was pretty amazing. I think it was in that room, it was like Nate and Jim Nova and like a couple other like real heavy hitters. And I was like, great day at work. Great day.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about the twin valve is you can push it and it won't break apart, and it'll kind of just, it'll just keep going. Like it's just, it's, maybe it's like an anger valve. You could just like loudly and it's going to support you.
Nice.
And
Awesome.
then you have the axial, which I think is complete opposite spectrum.
Yeah.
Again, it's a beautiful sounding valve, but it has the long throw. It can be efficient. Articulations can be a little bit more difficult on the axial valve.
Right.
But it has a fantastic sound to it, especially in the lower register. And again, some people love it, some people don't love it. It's really all what works for you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna pivot from valves. I don't remember where we're at. From valves. Let's chat about lead pipes. Lead pipes to me are like, I always say in appointments, you're gonna build a cake. You can't start with the sprinkles or like the toppings. Like lead pipes to me are sprinkles. You got to build like the whole cake, and then you can like build your way up to the top tier, and then it's the sprinkles. Um, can you chat a little bit about why we offer multiple lead pipes with most horns?
Yeah.
And then let's also get into like the geeky stuff between long, short, different alloys too.
Yeah, definitely. So I totally agree with Sam about the sprinkles. For me, the lead pipe, it's a little bit about tinkering, but it's that last final touch. Um, and so Shire's horns come with either 3 brass lead pipes or 1 sterling silver lead pipe,
Mhm.
generally, and they all are a little bit different. So,
Or three brass slash nickel. Like
look,
nickel's in that bag too, or
yeah,
1 sterling. Yeah.
our most popular ones, just to start there, because there
Yeah.
are variations. Our most popular ones are the brass or sterling silver. And with the brass, it's with the articulations, like I always think of lead pipes to help with articulation, and then sound is different as well. But the biggest thing for me is articulations. We generally start with a 2 brass when we're in appointments, just because it is the most middle of the road for us. We have a 1, 2, and a 3. And then in between there, we also have 1.5, 2.5. We
Mhm.
also, um, but the 2 is just very flexible without being too open, and it's also going to give you a lot of stability. Say like a one lead pipe is going to give you the most stability, but then again, you're not going to have the flexibility as you might with a 3, which to someone,
So which one is smallest, which one's biggest, by the way? Because a lot of people always get them mixed up.
yeah, so smallest is the 1.
Okay,
It's
cool.
going to feel the most stable. You're going to get great slotting. Articulations should be fairly easy. And then on the other hand, you have the 3, which is going to be the most open. It's the largest. It's going to be the most open. You're going to have like a lot of flexibility, but it could be like, playing like a toilet paper roll. It could just be way too big. I don't know why I thought about that. I think it's Corona. I don't know. But it could feel really large. Oh boy.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
and then we also offer long and short lead pipes.
Right.
The long lead pipes will add stability.
So it's like a paper towel roll.
It's like a paper towel roll. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So the long lead pipes will add stability, whereas the short lead pipes, you're going to feel a little bit more flexibility and a little bit open. It's a
Yeah.
lot of if you feel one thing, you can go the exact opposite as well. Like you
Yeah.
really have something that can be for everyone. So you might want something that's like a 3 long. So you might want the openness, might want the flexibility, but then just a little bit of stability added.
Yeah.
Might be for like a 3 long. But then
I,
also, what?
oh, I was gonna say with the long stuff, I always kind of equate it to going bowling, but like having the bumpers on. Like there's a little bit more rigidity to the slot, to the articulation, like through the slot too.
Yeah,
But yeah, it definitely like you can kind of combine some of these facets for sure.
yeah, which can be sometimes overwhelming, but it's actually really fun when you step back and you're like, okay, this is the opportunity to make it perfect.
Right. It's just like that final step of tailoring. So like even with the Q series, like we include 3 lead pipes with the Q series because we still want customers to have that experience of tailoring between like a number 1, number 2, and number 3 lead pipe to make their already great horn even more perfect for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what
And then
about Sterling?
yeah, so then we also offer sterling silver, which is also incredibly popular. And with sterling silver, it's automatically a little bit longer. It's about an inch longer, similar to our long brass lead pipes. And with sterling silver, you're really going to focus those articulations. You're really going to focus the sound. It's going to be a little bit more dense, but it's also going to, like, I move people to sterling silver when I want a little bit more clarity on the fronts of articulations. And it's a super simple fix, but often it could really make a difference. And I like the sterling silver quite a bit. I think it's a
Yeah,
fantastic. We also offer those in varying sizes as well, like the 1, 2, 3, one and
yeah,
a half.
half sizes.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
let's just really quick euphonium lead pipes because I saw Brandon Jones was watching a little bit ago. So for the euphonium lead pipes, we offer them in brass and nickel, and some of this stuff applies. And we didn't quite talk about nickel, but it's kind of like a little bit more clarity and brilliance than the yellow brass. Maybe it can be. I don't want to say brittle in a bad way, like a little bit more like ping to the front, I guess.
Yeah,
But that holds true to the euphonium. So like if you're playing on the Q40 versus the Q41, and you're just comparing the lead pipes. Like the nickel can give you a little bit more clarity, a little bit more front end to the articulation for sure. Whereas the yellow brass lead pipe is a little bit more open and a little bit more resonant, maybe. It just kind of depends what you're looking for.
Yeah, it has like this warm kind of blooming sound.
Yeah, blooming is a nice way to describe it, actually. That's nice. We just use a lot of adjectives here. All we do is just kind of like keep a thesaurus handy and just kind of like go through and pick
Also, a
through.
lot of weird imagery. I think I once compared something to like a plush purple, like velvet carpet or something.
You
Like really
did.
specific.
Yes, I think we were talking about the Alessi Q series,
Yeah.
where when Joe was going back and forth between slides and stuff. Um, so for trumpet lead pipes, and this is like super geeky, nitty gritty kind of stuff. So our trumpet lead pipes, for the most part, are yellow brass. But when we're talking about trumpet lead pipes, we're talking about different tapers, W, Y, Z, and you can read more about that kind of stuff on our website too. But it's basically like the rate of taper of the pipe and where we cut it. So we draw all those lead pipes and we cut it at different points in the lead pipe, and that affects the rate of taper. We're also talking about the venturi. So similar to trombone, but it's like this very easy way of describing it. It's kind of like the size of the hole or how efficient or compact it is. So you can have something like the dock model, which is like a 345 venturi. And that's maybe a little bit more compact and a little bit more efficient than the 349, for example, which is a little bit more open. But the weird thing with the trumpet lead pipes, and sometimes can be true on trombone, is that just because something's smaller doesn't mean that it's actually going to feel smaller to you. Everybody feels resistance very differently. So if you read a description and it says this is really open and free blowing, and you go play it and it feels kind of stuffy and covered, you might feel things opposite of what we describe them as. And I'm one of those people. Like as a trumpet player, I play a 345 Venturi lead pipe on my B flat, which is a little bit more compact and efficient. But to me, that feels more open because I feel like I'm touching the sides of everything that I'm doing. And I like having that little bit more cushion behind the horn. Whereas being on a bigger lead pipe, a more open lead pipe, actually feels like I'm kind of falling into it and starts to end up sounding smaller for me. And Alexis, I'm sure like you've heard a lot of trumpet players coming through the shop and saying like, I want something that's really open and free blowing. And then they end up on something like totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting to see how people react to different things.
Yeah.
Which is why it is important to try out
Yeah.
forms. And even if it's something that you might not be interested in, try it. Just try it. Just see, because even if you hate it, at least we know you hate it. And so that's one thing. And we can kind of go the opposite direction. But yeah, and that's, I think the other thing that really needs to be underscored is everybody is different. Like
Yeah.
everyone's so different, and that's okay. That's why we make as many things as we make. And you should really be excited to try all of the different components that we have and not to like write it off, basically.
And and we should say too, we know that right now things are difficult in terms of trying instruments. Somebody had asked us a question about like what our policy is on customers trying things. Right now the showroom is closed. We're still navigating this with everybody else. Our factory is back and all of our team members are going to be back for the most part next week and like continuing throughout the summer. But we're still navigating this with everybody else too. And we want to make sure that we can keep our team healthy and building instruments and also keep you guys all healthy and playing instruments too. So we are shipping instruments to dealers and to customers and all of that kind of stuff every day. We're not allowing people to come into the showroom to test things. Come later this summer, we will start doing virtual appointments where you can kind of jump on a Zoom call with us and chat through some questions. Also in the interim, you can always send us an email at info@shires.com, and we're responding to that stuff daily with questions about different tapers and, you know, troubleshooting questions about equipment. But yeah, you can purchase an instrument from a dealer from us and chat with them about like a return trial policy. Everybody seems to be pretty flexible right now. We have a whole list of our dealers at shires.com/dealers. And it's a new fancy one with like you pop in your zip code and it brings up all the people near you, which is really fun. But you know, it's definitely a different time. You might not be able to try everything all at the same time. And you might be going more based off of a conversation with a specialist about something like this. And actually that kind of brings us to a really great question that we had from, was it Chris Benhoff that wrote in, or who was asking that? Who was asking that great question about, let's assume a student is looking to buy a new horn and is not able to attend a trade show to try out a whole bunch of stuff, or the showroom to try a whole bunch of stuff. First, is it okay to buy a new horn sight unseen? And second, what should we know as a teacher who's advising that student on buying something?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And I think also we can use it as an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about what a fitting is like, just the basics of a fitting, what someone should be ready for. Uh, I know at Shires we do our best to have all of the instruments be consistent, to make sure that, say, I used Colin Williams model earlier, but like a George Curran model plays like a George Curran model, and every single one plays like that. Or our Q30YR plays like a Q30YR, which will play like the next Q30YR.
Right.
That's a huge thing for us. And so if there's someone who's interested in buying our Q series or a custom series sight unseen, I would say it's a safe bet, frankly.
Yeah.
But the thing to really be mindful of is that, especially if it's a younger player, you want to find a horn that's going to really grow with the player, and that's also going to have the flexibility for them to do, chamber music, orchestra, band, jazz band, solo stuff. Like, you want to find a horn that's versatile enough that they're also going to have some success with, which will motivate them to play more and practice more and get better, and then potentially, take over the world. And so I think it's also important as a teacher to have the student try whatever they can, if that's possible. See what they're coming from, see how they feel about that, and try and advise from there. Generally, you probably have more information than you think you do.
Yeah, for sure. And just based on, like, if you are the teacher, like, your students playing, that if they're, a very bright player, gold brass bell might kind of mellow something out for them. If they need a little bit more compactness in their articulation, maybe going that rotor route instead of an axial. There's definitely some easy stuff like that. And again, we are here to answer all of your questions. That's literally what we're here for. So we're happy to
Right.
chat with you.
Yeah, it's like a thought experiment. You're like, oh, okay.
Right, yeah, for sure. So I'm just trying to think, like, how does, what was the second part of the question? Advising a student who's buying in terms of what a solid, like, middle of the road setup would be, like, especially with the Q series. Like, can you talk a little bit about the Q?
Yeah. I think the Q is amazing. I think it's awesome, frankly. And we offer options that you can find the right cue for someone, whether it's a gold bell, a yellow bell, if you want to pair that with an axial, if you want to pair that with a rotor, and then you get obviously the 3 different lead pipes.
Yep.
They're fantastic instruments. They're super consistent. And even being able to pair just the bell and the valve, you're going to make huge steps towards finding that perfect horn for your student. Generally, like, gold with a rotor might go really nicely. The rotor will kind of offset any woofiness that might come with the gold, but you'll still have that beautiful color palette.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas yellow bell might be fantastic with an axial. It's really, what is the student coming from and how comfortable are they with what they're coming from? But the Q series offers this fantastic opportunity to really grow with the student as the student starts figuring out what they want to do and the sound concept that they have in their head.
Yeah, and a big part of that is because all of the designs for the Q are based on some of our most popular things. So, like, the Q tenor bells are based on like a 1YM T8. So, like, a traditional 2-piece soldered bell, medium weight, yellow or gold, with a thinner bead wire. And, like, that's always been a super staple horn for us. It's always been very, very popular. Like the Alessi Q, that's actually based on the custom series equivalent. We try to pick things that we know are just going to be home runs, and it's going to be a really great fit. The other part of it is that the Q is still totally modular with the custom series.
Right.
That's an amazing thing. There's nothing else like it in the market, where you can purchase the Q and then continue to make changes, and not even upgrades, just changes.
Yeah.
We have some people like Jeremy Marks, one of our friends and artists comes to mind, who bought a Q bass and then like bought a different set of axials for it, and then also had like the bell cut. Like you can still geek out on a Q series, and it can be so fun for your primary instrument, but also as a doubler if you're looking to get into some, alto, because the Q
Yeah.
alto will be coming out sometime later this year.
Or
Um,
also if you're a freelancer who has to get into bass trombone,
yeah,
fantastic opportunity without totally breaking the bank.
right, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, it's really hilarious to me that we're doing this chat, and we're a company of trumpet, euphonium, and a lot of trombone, but we haven't talked about hand slides.
Oh,
It's kind
I
of
feel
wild.
that's important.
Oops. Um, can we chat a little bit about some basic stuff, like how the alloys play into hand slides,
Yes.
and then also maybe like width, narrow, wide.
Yeah. So we offer wide slides and standard Crook slides. Our most popular slides. Oh, and we also have bass crooks. I forgot about that. Ta-da.
Lots of options.
What?
Lots of options.
Lots of options. Yeah. So let's take a slide like a TW47, one of our most popular tenor slides. The slide is yellow legs with a nickel crook, and that seems to be one of our most popular combinations, just because you have the yellow, which gives the warmth, but then you have the nickel, which really focuses the sound. It really helps with stability and articulation. And from there, you can have three different types of crooks. For something like a TW47, you have a wide crook, but we have three different crooks that we offer. We have the wide crook, and we also have the bass crook. And the bass crook is wide as well, but the bore size is a little bit more akin to a bass.
Right.
Whereas the narrow crook, it's really interesting. Some people really like the narrow crook because even of how it feels in their hand. But also the narrow crook is going to be a little bit more compact, a little bit more stable. I think a good rule of thumb is generally if something is smaller, you're going to have a little bit more efficiency, a little bit more stability. The sound might not be, you might not have the full range of the color palette. I think that's kind of the best way to look at
Mm-hmm.
equipment. Um, Also, we have gold slides as well, which have this really beautiful warmth and richness and resonance to the slide or to the horn, but sometimes it might get a little woofy. So you might have a gold slide with, say, a yellow crook, which will really help even that articulation. So similar to our Alessi slide, which is gold with the yellow crook, you have that beautiful warmth and resonance and richness, but then you also have the yellow, which is going to kind of balance it out and help with your clarity of articulation.
Yeah, for sure. We had another question, and I'm just trying to find it in here. Don was wondering, has there been any discussion about medium bore 525 trombones being produced? And yeah, we've been making them for a very long time.
I play on a 525.
Yeah, Alexis like came to us playing a 525 as her like large bore symphonic horn. We've always made, well, in 25 years, for a very long time, we've made 525 horns. And we have some very popular options, and a lot of our players like to have a setup on like a 525 slide so that they can use that to diversify their palette of playing.
Yeah, no, the 525 is a great slide. I love it. It's really easy. And honestly, like I don't want to stress myself out more.
Right.
525, it's super easy. I feel like I really don't have to I feel like I don't have to think about anything. I just think about the note and it sort of works, which is a terrible way to say something. But I love my 525. We also do the 525, 547 dual bore slide, which you can find on our Sour model. And that's also a fantastic option as well. It will also add a lot of power to the sound, having that dual bore slide. But yeah, 525, we make it. I love it.
It's great.
Not say enough great things about it.
Standard width and also in the wide width. I think I just saw an order come through the other day for like a TW25YC yellow crook or something. So like you can get geeky with 525 stuff. We're always up for getting geeky with a lot of this stuff. So if you have questions, just let us know. It's there's just so many options. There's thousands and thousands of options. So we always try to do our best to steer you to what we think is in the end going to work for you. If we think it's interesting, but we think it's maybe a little bit in left field, we'll tell you nicely. Maybe we've tried it before and it hasn't. It it seems like it makes sense. Like, I was on your website and I saw that I want a T15YM, like A5, like a whole bunch of stuff, and it just doesn't really make sense. Like, we'll tell you. We'll
Yeah.
say that sounds cool, but maybe this would be a better offering.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if like you're putting together all of those different letters and numbers, sometimes there's something that plays very similar that we make in its standard and it's a little bit easier. It's less of a wait for you.
Yep.
Everyone's
Yep. We had a quick question too. Peter was asking, and he asked a couple questions, and he's getting a fancy new Colin Williams model. But he's asking about counterweights. How do counterweights affect the response, and how do you think about pairing that if somebody's playing on a cut bell as well?
Yes, they do. I've actually thought a lot about counterweights recently, which is a weird thing to say, but I have.
Hmm.
So we offer two different types of counterweights. We have the standard weight and then we have the lightweight, which I think is half of the standard weight.
I don't quite remember like in grams, but yeah, it's just
Yeah, it's half, I
yes, yeah,
think.
yeah.
They do change the sound. They add a lot of stability and a lot of core, especially the standard weight counterweight. They will sometimes act as just getting that little extra clarity that you might want at the beginning of an articulation or feel like it's slotting a little bit more easily. But also sometimes when someone will put on a counterweight, you'll lose a little bit of that resonance that you get with the horn. We also have the lightweight counterweight, which is
New in like the last year or two.
in 2 years,
Yeah, maybe two.
um, but that's sort of a nice middle ground. Generally, for valve tenors, we don't do a lot with counterweights, but I think it's definitely something that we could explore a little bit more, especially now that we have the lightweight counterweight and it's not like an on and off switch. But the counterweight does add, it is incredibly different. Sometimes it'll be that little extra kick you need so the horn feels absolutely perfect for you.
Right.
Uh, but maybe we can also tweak it another way. Like we'll have a seam tuning slide instead of a drawn tuning slide, or maybe we'll change the lead pipe for you. But a counterweight is definitely something that I bring into appointments with people just to see how they react to it.
And our counterweights are really fantastic. Super easy design. It's you can just really screw it on and not have to like take out a screwdriver and like go to town with like taking out little pieces. It's very easy to use. So it's a fun, relatively inexpensive, tweaky kind of thing that you can have in your back pocket or keep in your case or whatever, to see what it does for you. So it's a easy like gateway drug kind of thing to testing out some different stuff. Um, we haven't talked about, and I know this is going a little bit past 9, but I think there's a couple other things that we can cover if that's okay with you, Alexis. Um, Alto trombones. We have we've had a lot of questions about alto trombones. I think through all this COVID stuff, people are finding some fun practicing opportunities for alto. I think like 2 weeks ago, I had like 6 people in a couple of days email about alto trombone questions. It was pretty funny. There's a lot of alto. Um, what's the difference between the tuning and slide versus the bell tuning?
Yeah. I find them to be fairly different, pretty different in both how they feel physically, but then also the sound. And so let's start with the tuning in the bell alto. That obviously is going to feel, yeah. So yeah, like a traditional
Yeah,
tenor.
right.
Um, that obviously is going to feel more akin to a tenor trombone. It's going to be a little bit easier of a transition. And also, what I've noticed is the weight feels a little bit different. Something as simple as the slide versus bell weight ratio. With the tuning in the slide, I find it to be a little bit front heavy, but also it just feels a little different than your tenor. It depends how quickly you might want to switch over. But when it comes to sounds, the biggest thing I've noticed is that the tuning in the bell it feels a little bit heftier to me. It feels a little bit more, and it could just be coming from how it feels to me physically, that it feels more like a tenor. But the sound also to me sounds a little bit more like a tenor. It has a little bit more space, a little bit more um, expands a little bit more heft to it. Whereas the tuning in the slide, I feel like has a little bit more nimbleness to the sound. It has a little bit more of that sort of, I don't want to say compact, but it has a little bit more of that alto, traditional alto sound. The tuning and slide, I would think more of like a solo alto, whereas the tuning and bell, I would think more of like an orchestral alto.
Nice, interesting. Yeah, the bell tuning is again another new thing that we've been working on. And I will do a little plug. We're still working and trying to rein things in, but we will be coming out with a Q alto and an Alessi alto too, which is going to be really fun. Joe's been trying some stuff out, and through some of the different Facebook things that we've done, he did a couple little tests on the Q Alessi alto that we're kind of gearing up for. But yeah, our alto trombones are really fantastic. All the same things apply in terms of like the alloys and the different bell nomenclature and slide stuff. There's more info on the website for sure, and we actually have a fair amount of dealers who stock the altos because they tend to be really popular and really fantastic. I want to talk really quick about oh, Peter's asking what valve is in the alto. It's a rotary valve. Yeah, just a little baby rotary valve. So in terms of like what's new for us and what is going to be happening, we did have to shut our factory down for like 2.5 months or so, but we're back at it and we're like thrilled to be here. We have a lot of new projects that are in the works and will be coming out maybe a little bit later than what we had originally anticipated, but still a ton of stuff. Like I said, the Q Alto and the Alessi Q Series Alto and Alessi Custom Series Alto. That stuff's going to be amazing. Not a specific date on that, but I think that, you know, we're pretty close. The altos are very exciting. We will at some point, and it's on the docket, to do a Shires contrabass trombone. That will be so rad. It will be very cool, and we'll have a total blast. And we'll have a Q Series equivalent to that too, so that it'll be like a very like reasonably priced contrabass trombone. Great for doublers, great for schools and orchestras. Trumpet is huge. Tons of new trumpet projects. Coming out with a Q Series piccolo. Coming out with a flugelhorn. The flugelhorn is like in like some of the final stages of development, and it's amazing. So we'll have a custom series and a Q Series equivalent flugelhorn. Some new stuff for cornet will be coming out with like a Q Series cornet as well. We just had a big redesign to the dock model, and it's absolutely stupendous. The Z braces are now made out of a nickel like footprint. There's nickel plated pistons, different than what we typically do, which is like a Manel piston. And also we have the medium large and the medium bore version of the dock model, but they both have like medium bore interconnects between each of the valves. So that kind of gives you a little bit more compactness and compression in the horn, but still like the rest of the easy flowing kind of playing horn that you're used to. So tons of stuff for trumpet as well. And then euphonium, we just came out with the Q series, the Q40 and the Q41, and we're thrilled. And it's been a total blast, and it's really fun getting to work with euphonium players, and so many of them have become our really good friends through this. We are going to be working on custom series euphonium. That is definitely something that's going to be coming down the pipe. We're going to push that a little bit more. It'll probably be like a 2021 kind of thing, but we're still working on it even now. We've been working on designing triggers for euphoniums and stuff like that. So despite our factory being closed for the better part of 2 months, almost 3 months, we've still had projects moving and shaking, and it's been really, really great. So you'll still see a lot of stuff coming from us later this year and into like 2021, 2022. But if you have questions about some of that stuff, like feel free to let us know. We try to do our best about pushing it to social media and also putting it on the website too when there's a big release. But lots of fun stuff. Let's see, Victor just asked a great question. Your website doesn't seem to address all the information that you mentioned tonight. How can more information be found? It's a great point. There's a ton of stuff in terms of Shires. like for our dealers, I wrote like an almost 40-page in Shires encyclopedia. It's the most boring thing you've ever read. But some of that stuff is like on the website in terms of like if you go to the top of the page where it says like trombones and you go down to trombone options, you can drill down into like more info about the bells, the valves, the slides, stuff like that. The really nitty gritty stuff, we always like to facilitate a conversation. To us, that means the world. We so much prefer for you to ask your questions and get a response from like one of our team members or one of our like really valuable dealers who knows their stuff. We care so much about the build of the horns, the quality of the craftsmanship, and your experience with them, both as a player and then also like through this process. So for the geeky stuff, that's why we're here. Like we have a great sales team. We love what we do, and it's totally to facilitate making sure that you have a great experience with stuff.
Yeah. And also, just to add on to that, if you have a question and maybe it's something that we don't quite know, it also opens up the conversation
Yeah,
that we can talk about it and be like, oh, this either it's a new idea or, it'll just be a fun experiment to try and figure out. Be like, maybe I can find this in the showroom or grab it from
we
production.
troubleshoot. Yeah.
So we will do our best to figure it out if we don't know it. But it's also fun for us to try and think our way through everything or try it out or to start that conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say, I think I said at the top of the broadcast, but we're going to do another one, another ShiresTV episode with myself and some of our colleagues from like the craftsman perspective of building instruments and like what goes into building and some of your more like specific questions about like how do we solder things together and like in our machine shop, like how do we take a blank and like turn it into like a full set of pistons or a rotor casing or whatever. So I think that will be pretty cool. We'll kind of tag team that with a shop tour, so you can kind of get a behind the scenes peek at the factory. So we're going to continue to do stuff like this. It might not be a bad idea for Alexis and I to do another one of these sessions. So maybe we can queue that up for like a back to school special kind of thing in August or something. But I definitely will always say our website has some information on there, but it's also very easy to get in contact with us through the website. You can go to the contact page, and when you fill that out, it just gets emailed to us directly. So we always do our best to get back to everybody. It's been a little bit crazy busy the last few weeks as things are starting to ramp up and get moving again, but we'll definitely do our best to get back to you with your questions. I'm trying to think. I just talked a lot, but Alexis, maybe you can, before we head out of here, let us know what you're most looking forward to with Shires in the future.
Oh. That's so many things. I think the thing that I'm most looking forward to is just how curious we are and how every day we're asking questions, and you never know what's going to come from these conversations. Even if someone emailed us about, like, as I said before, something that we don't know. And just seeing how far we can take it, seeing what makes the most sense, seeing how people respond. I would love for us to basically be at the forefront. Like, let's try it. Like, why not? Why not? There's
Like a good case in point is the blue trombone that we're doing
oh my god.
for our friend Sean, who's in the Coast Guard band. Literally a blue lacquered trombone with like this really rad custom engraving. Like we've never built a blue trombone before.
Yeah.
It's gonna be super fun.
Yeah. I'm very excited about that one.
Yeah, it'll be fun for you to play test it.
I don't know. I think I'll just like laugh out of happiness. Just be like, what is this?
It's a Smurf trombone. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. But I'm also like extremely excited about the Q Series Alto. Like unbelievably excited about the Q Series Alto. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna steal them. I'm very excited.
Alexis's office is adjacent to the showroom, so like she like sneaks in and
yeah, if I have 5 minutes, I like to go in and just play things and put together parts and be like, this doesn't make any sense, and see what happens. And sometimes
it's fun.
yeah, sometimes it really works.
Yeah.
Like the counterweight thing.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but there are honestly just so many things that I'm excited about. Every day it brings something new. Uh, and it's also, you're just around great people who are curious. I think really curiosity is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and pretty much everybody that works at the factory, I'd say like 8, almost 9 out of 10 people in the shop play mostly a brass instrument. We have Dan is a rogue saxophone clarinetist. Beth plays flute very well. And yeah, I mean, we have pretty much everybody else plays tuba, trombone, trumpet, and some really incredible players. So everybody comes to it with a huge passion for the instruments and making sure that like your experience as a player is just so enjoyable and so fulfilling.
Yeah. I think also it really helps being able to be like, oh, this feels super open, or this, feels really compact. And everybody kind of has an understanding of what that feels like.
Yeah.
And so we're all on the same page. It's also really great when sometimes during breaks they'll go into the showroom and they'll have their horns and they'll start playing, and you're just like, this is wonderful.
Or like the Shires ensemble, like there's a Shires brass ensemble that we have, and it's not during COVID times, of course, but it's our crew and then friends and family and whoever's in the area. And it happens, is it Tuesdays or Thursday?
Thursdays, I think.
Yeah, every other week or something. But if you're in the area and you're interested in that, you can always send us an email. We can get you more information. But it's just a group of nerds playing brass instruments at the Shires factory. It's a total blast. When we have events like the factory weekends and that type of stuff, which right now, of course, has to be postponed, but we will get back to that when it's safe to do so. We bring out the brass ensemble, and it's a lot of fun. So
yeah, it's a really great place.
yeah. Well, Alexis, this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us.
It's fun, and yeah, feel free to shoot any questions.
Yeah, so the email is info@shires.com. The website is a great place to start with some information, get in contact with us, use that contact form, take a look at that dealer locator. That's really fun. And definitely subscribe to our Facebook and Instagram, because we do a lot there in terms of different events and different announcements, and just a lot of fun content. And if there's stuff that you'd like to see, let us know. It's a total blast for us to get to share what it is that we do with you guys. So this has been a really fun episode of ShiresTV for me. It's awesome to get to see you, Alexis.
I know. I miss
I
everyone.
know. And we'll keep the content coming, and we'll have an announcement about our next episode of ShiresTV in the next couple of days. And this one will get archived on our page and also go on our YouTube channel as well. If you have more questions about equipment, email us. That's the best way to do it. And until then, just we hope that you're all doing well and practicing and enjoying your horns. And yeah, we'll see you very soon in some way or another. So cool.
All
Awesome.
right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye-bye.